Are ready to go.
All right.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Unity of Joplin Online. And our social media check-in is, of course, not cooperating. Our slideshow is not. Bear with me, guys. It worked a second ago.
It's okay. It's a good time to take a couple of deep centering breaths.
Okay, I think we're
and
going.
mute our phones.
Yes,
There we go.
please.
All right, Ann, take it away.
Yeah, we are so glad to be back with you. Happy May, the merry month of May. And we are going to check in with our social media. If you have another device that you're not on, or even if you could take a break on this one. Michael, do you have the check-in? I can do it.
I do not.
Okay. Through contemplation, I am transformed at Unity of Joplin. Ooh, that sounds deep. Through contemplation, I am transformed at Unity of Joplin. That happens to me about every week here. Great transformational messages, fellowship, and inspiration. So grateful you all are part of it. And now we'll move on to our first song, our gathering song. We know it, we love it. God is. Not hearing it though.
Oh, boy.
Morning when I rise, and before I close my eyes,
And try it a minute, folks.
anytime I'm in despair, I just speak this little prayer. God's light surrounds me.
We're just having some technical difficulties. Hang on, please.
All right, I'm trying to find the controls. They went away.
Uh-oh.
I can't,
God's love
How's that?
enfolds me.
It's
God's power.
Oh, come on.
Well, we still have that spirit because where two or three or more are gathered, right?
absolutely.
Well, my screen, all my controls are gone. So I am going to leave for a second and come right back in and see if we can't reboot this.
Okay.
Protects me. The presence of God watches over me. Wherever
Being grateful is part of our prosperity.
Yes.
Okay, let's try this again. Can you hear me? Hello? Oh, for crying out loud. Hello? Hello? I've got nothing.
We hear you.
I know, but I can't hear anything, and it doesn't do any good. Okay, somebody say something now.
Something.
Okay, there we go. Okay, let's try this again.
All right.
Hang in there with us, Facebook people.
They are. They're doing great.
Marilyn's here. Hi.
In the morning.
Is it working?
I'm not hearing anything.
What is
When
going on?
I rise,
Oh, there it is.
and before I close my eyes, anytime I'm in despair, I just speak this little prayer. God's light surrounds me. God's love.
Is it still going?
No.
Love enfolds me.
Here it is.
Going on.
God's power protects me. The presence of God watches over me. Wherever I am, God is. We all hear the Spirit call. It's a small world after all. Bound together in and through. This one common simple truth. God's light surrounds us. God's love enfolds us. God's power protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. God's light surrounds us. God's love enfolds us. God's power protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. And
Awesome.
all is
Awesome. What a catchy tune. I love it. That was brought to you, of course, by our music team. Thank goodness they are there taking care of us week to week. We want to thank Gary and Jerry, of course. We also want to thank John. And we also want to thank Michael for recording each week and making the sound as good as it possibly can, given these conditions. So thank you, guys. Also, John is going to be the soloist today. I'm looking forward to that. And I also wanted to introduce you. I don't need to introduce you to Jefferson is our trustee of the day. He is in the Facebook chat saying hello to you, holding the space for today's service. And if you have any questions, if there's anything you need, you can just reach out to him, and he is there for us. So thank you, Jefferson, for taking care of that. I'm Ann. I am the platform person today, and of course Gordon will be bringing us another powerful meditation and service. Right now, though, we'd like to take this opportunity to bless our tithes and love offerings, and we're just going to invite you to make your gift through the donate button on our website, unityofjoplin.org. And I believe Jefferson's going to put that into the chat, the link to do that. Wonderful opportunity, especially in this new month, to really commit to the practice of gratitude, giving, and receiving. And that's one way that you can do it. Or you can just mail a check to the office, but we like to do it instantly so that we can continue to grow and thrive at Unity of Joplin. A reminder, those of you that are taking the Prosperity Plus class, we tithe through our class, and again, using that donate button. All right, so let's just take a moment and do our blessing and affirm the dedication of these gifts. In a universe overflowing with the allness of God, all of the needs of Unity of Joplin and those we serve are bountifully met. From every direction, known and unknown, expected and unexpected, our abundant good comes to us now. We are so grateful. Thank you, God. And we know together that these tithes and offerings are dedicated to the will and work of Spirit through Unity of Joplin for the highest good of all. We are blessed, and you are blessed. Thank you so much. We have just a couple of announcements. I spoke of the Prosperity Plus class, and as a result of a few technical difficulties with that class, it is an opportunity for you all to join in with us if that's something that you're interested in doing. There are materials to purchase, but we are meeting Thursday nights at 7 p.m. and you would be welcome to become part of it. Very powerful process. I love that we're kind of starting it in this new month, and with this new energy coming to the planet after our stay-at-home orders, I think that this is going to be a really powerful class. So feel free to jump in. You can just send an email to Gordon at unityofjoplin.org, and he can get you fixed up with the link to the class. We are continuing, well, we aren't, Gordon is continuing evening check-ins at 8 p.m. every night except Sunday, and I think that will continue probably for a while. It's really nice to have that little dose of inspiration from our spiritual leader each night, and going back to watch the replay, that's been really powerful for me too. So it's right here on our Facebook page, so check in with us at 8 p.m. Let's see. Also, yeah, if you just want to hang out today and chat with Gordon, he's welcome to stick around as long as you want to. Good time to grab that fourth cup of coffee, maybe. All right. And then coming up next month in June, the mystics of the Middle Ages and how they influence modern New Thought, a new class that Gordon's putting together for us. It sounds fascinating, and I'm really looking forward to it. Today would have been potluck, so I was thinking maybe you could put into the chat what food you would have brought if we could all be together today. So just drop that into the chat box and let's make each other hungry. All right. Thank you, friends. Thank you for being with us. It sounds weird, but we can definitely feel your energy when we come together like this, even through a metal box or through a phone. So you are a vital part of our energy, and we're so very grateful that you chose to spend this time with us today. And to kind of prepare for the service, Michael has got the daily word to share.
All right. We got another throwback thanks to Gordon from 1959. I really like this one. It's so important. Please listen. Keep silent. I quietly contemplate the truth of my spiritual nature, and I am quickened. Sometimes we catch a glimpse of truth that is startlingly clear, and we are filled with a joy that is difficult to contain. We would like to tell our family, our friends, and the whole world of the vision we have caught. But there is a right time for sharing the light that has been revealed to us, and there is a right time for keeping silent. The seed in the ground requires time for germination. The yeast in the dough requires time for leaven. The revelation in the heart requires contemplation before completion. Jesus told his apostles not to reveal the transfiguration they had beheld on the mountain until the demonstration was finished. But how different their lives must have been from that moment forward. Let us quietly contemplate the new vision we have caught until it is time to translate its beauty into words. Our mind will be changed, our ideals will be lifted, our life will be transformed. Jesus commanded them, saying, "Tell the vision to no man." Matthew 17:9.
Thank you, Michael. That was powerful. And I'm going to try to change our slide to our next song. It's a really, really good song. It may be one of my new favorites. It's called A World Awakening. And for some reason today, my PowerPoint keeps locking up. It worked fine when we rehearsed about a half hour or so ago. So bear with me. I don't know what's going on with it. There we go.
No more fighting, hearts uniting, all one people, all one dream. Hate is dying, love is rising, all the world awakening. Children of one God, one planet, let the earth and heaven sing. Join the angels' joy, strength for a world awakening. Oh, for a world awakening. One day all the world is watching, time brings us a common theme. Peace our anthem, all are welcome to a world awakening. Oh, for a world awakening. Oh, for a world awakening. Blue
All right. Are we on? Okay. I'm just going to tell you all, part of the problem I have here is that when I go to share screen, I have no way of knowing if it's sharing or not. I don't know why, but apparently Zoom doesn't tell you if you're actually sharing. So I am thinking that by the time we finally get perfect at this, we'll be back in person. But we're going to keep doing online anyway, so we'll just keep practicing and plugging along until we get it.
Yeah.
And before we go into meditation, I would just like to share with you, you may notice that on my screen, let me see if I can get it so the Facebook people can see it here. And it's only letting me see you. It's not letting me see anybody else. Turn your mic off.
Okay.
Okay, it should go to whoever is speaking, which is me. And it's not. Well, anyway, Facebook people, if you could see my screen, you would see that I am sitting on the bridge of the Enterprise. And I'm doing that because today we are going to boldly go where no one has gone before, or at least not very many people have gone before spiritually. So I thought that was an appropriate background for today. So I invite you to turn within. Take a deep, cleansing breath. And imagine we are boldly going to a new planet, a new home. And truly, I think that is what this experience has been about these last weeks. Especially for those of us who are on a spiritual path. We are boldly going to a new planet of our making, to a world awakening. Take a breath. The air is cleaner than it has been in many, many decades. The sky is bluer. The water is clearer. And spring has come to this new planet. A new world is awakening. I step out onto this land, onto this awakened planet. I feel a new energy. An energy of expectation, of hope, of enthusiastic going forth. For here we have been given a chance to create a higher and more perfect normal. I call upon the creative energy of God that flows through me as what I call the Christ power. I feel that energy, that movement, that emotive force, that creative process. I envision, I imagine, I create an image of a world awakening. A world where every being on the planet is aware of their connection to all life. A world where everybody feels that empathy with all life. I envision a world awakened to the knowledge that every action impacts every form of life. A world where every human being accepts and embraces our responsibility for every other human being. and every other life form. I envision a world where all humanity is in conscious awareness of the creative energy of spirit, whether we call it the Christ, the God energy, the life force. We are bound together as one. And thus we create with a united purpose. A united purpose towards higher expression, toward all our needs being met, towards all life being supported and nurtured. Together we step onto a world awakening. And as we go into the silence, hold that image of a world awakened. Awakened to our unity, awakened to our empathy, awakened to our oneness. In the silence, I behold a world awakening. And breathing that clean, crisp air. I feel Mother Earth herself saying, "Welcome, my children. Thank you for awakening." I hold that vision of an awakened world, an awakened race of humanity. As I return to my individuated body, I say thank you, God, for the power to awaken. And so it is.
Teach me that it all belongs, that everything is sacred. I eat the bread and drink the wine, but help me love my neighbor. Show me how to hold this light, 'cause I don't want to waste it. No, I don't want to waste it. Oh, heaven is upside down. that everything is sacred. Ordinary teach me that it all belongs, that everything is sacred. I eat the bread and drink the wine, but help me love my neighbor. Show me how to hold this life, 'cause I don't want to waste it. No, I don't want to waste it. Oh, heaven is upside down. Oh, it can be here now. Oh, seeing it all around, that everything is sacred. Ordinary shines and glows, filled with your intentions. You don't see the lines we draw between secular and sacred. Show me how to hold this life, 'cause I don't want to waste it. No, I don't want to waste it. Oh, heaven is upside down. Oh, it can be here now. Oh, seeing it all around, that everything is sacred. Life is a gift and the giver is good. Life is a gift and the giver is good. Life is a gift and the giver is good. Life is a gift and the giver is good. Oh, heaven is upside down. Oh, it can be here now. Oh, seeing it all around, that everything is sacred. Everything is sacred. Oh, everything is sacred.
All right. I apologize if you couldn't hear that very well. Obviously, we still have some work to do on our technology, but we'll get there. Can you all hear me now? Yeah? Okay, good. Facebook people, I am going to change our screen here, I hope. I said I'm going to change our screen. There we go. Hi, everybody out in Facebook land. All right, well, today we are finishing up our series on the universal Christ. I have thoroughly enjoyed this series. I hope you have too. It's been very enlightening for me. And as I've prepared these lessons, I've learned a lot. I hope you have too. For those of you who may not have been with us through this series, because I see names I don't recognize on our Facebook page, which is wonderful. We are so glad you are joining us here at Unity of Joplin. To give you some background about the series we have been doing a series entitled The Universal Christ, based on the book by Father Richard Rohr. And his mission statement, for this book anyway, and I think really probably for his whole life, is to return Jesus to humanity and the Christ to humans. So we've been exploring exactly what that means. Who was Jesus the person, and what is the Christ? Of course, in Unity, we believe the Christ is the essence of God, the spark of divinity that is found in every living thing. Actually, I would say in all of creation, every molecule, every atom of creation. And so today we're going to finish that up. Jesus was a man in history who embodied and modeled that Christ energy for us and showed us that we have the same potential he did. He said, all these things that I do, you will do and more. And in the original Aramaic that he spoke, the next line was, when you have believed what I have told you. So that is what we have been doing. And today we finish that up as we, oh my gosh, Facebook just fell over. For those of you on Zoom, you can't see that. But, hi guys, sorry about that. Hope you all are all right. This is so much fun. Okay. So today we're going to explore the final chapter of Transformation and Contemplation. My daughter says, woohoo, you enjoyed falling over like that, huh? The comments on Facebook, guys, are hilarious. And what is life if you can't have fun while you're exploring your spirituality, right? Well, today we are going to take up the challenge of transformation and contemplation. And specifically, we are going to start with one of the challenges we have with transformation as a species, as a people, and that is the challenge of the dual mind. It is what makes the idea of a universal Christ so difficult, even for those of us who have been using this model for so many years. To accept or understand an idea of a Christ that is universal, that is cosmic, that is not a person, but is a energy of God that is in all creation, is challenging because we are so indoctrinated with the mythological idea of the Christ. What do I mean when I say that? Well, I grew up with what I have come to know as the story of the mythological Jesus. The idea of one man in history who was a superhero who had powers and abilities that no one else ever would or could have. When in fact what he did was model powers and abilities that we all have. So I call that the mythological Christ, a being that was a one-time anomaly in history. And the challenge with that is that it makes it very difficult for us to accept a metaphysical Christ. It makes us feel separate from that that truth that he taught for all of us. We have such a hard time getting away from a singularity embodied in one man. And the idea that there was a man and a Christ, or a God and a Christ, that is limited to just one person. So what we are attempting to do is understand a non-dualistic idea of the Christ, the idea of a Christ as an active part of God. Think of it like this. Think of that Christ as being similar to our own voice. Our voice, my voice, is an active part of me. It is created by me. The words are imaged by me. And those words have creative or destructive power determined by me. They are not separate from me. They are from me. They are a part of me. They come forth from something within me. Well, that Christ energy is similar. It is the active or emotive force of God, peace of God. It is created by God. Its activity is imagined by God. It is the creative expression of God, and it is not separate from God. But more importantly than that even, that Christ imbues all of creation, which means that God is in all creation. And all of creation is in God. The Creator and creation are one. There is no separation. The Father and I are one. That's how Jesus described it. It means exactly the same thing. So what challenges us is that the idea of a cosmic Christ requires we lose the idea of duality. And for the Western mind, this is very difficult because we are so grounded and immersed and indoctrinated with the idea of duality. Everything is about duality to the Western mind. There is good and evil. There is increase and decrease. There is war and peace. There is love and hate. There is hot and cold. We are all about duality because of the way we have been programmed. So what we are attempting to do is install new programming. Actually, that's what we've been doing from the very beginning of creation. Ancient peoples had human consciousness 1.0. And along came the Buddha 2,600 years ago with version 2.0 of what I call the Christos programming. And then Jesus took us to 3.0. The mystics, New Thought, Islam, other religions, other ways of thinking, Gnosticism took us to 3.5. Unity has taken us to 3.8. And we are on the verge of Christos 4.0. We are attempting, and we are downloading an upgrade. So how do we do that? How do we download the contemplation upgrade? Well, we do it by contemplating. You know, contemplation is so important. And largely it's been a lost art. The early Christians did it, the first couple centuries of Christianity. Contemplation was an accepted part of it. It was a practice. It was understood that contemplation is a different way of processing experience, a radically different way of seeing, which most of us now have to be taught. Why? Why did we lose it? Well, with the codification of Christianity into a death cult, and yeah, that's what it is. Christianity is a death cult. Think about it. It's all about the death of a man. It's all about the death of a species, with the idea of the apocalypse, you know, the end of times, which we have been in since the idea was first come up with 2,000 years ago. With that idea, that formation of a death cult as a religion, we lost the life message of Jesus, and we lost the practice of contemplation. It was replaced with blind worship of a mythological hero who was a one-time anomaly in history. And we were programmed from the codification of this religion into believing that any deviation from it would result in persecution, in ostracization, in marginalization, in torture and suffering and death, and we have become stymied. But there are those of us who are boldly going where no one has gone before. Well, at least not very many. At least not in recent history. And we're daring to once again contemplate the Christ. And it's not just us in unity. Richard Rohr is doing it. Mystical Catholics, mystical Protestants, mystical people of all spiritual paths are doing this. It's been an experience that has survived everything throughout history. The people who have done it have been called mystics and heretics and metaphysicians and truth students and unitics. In our class coming up in June, we'll be studying some of those people who have dared to break out of the death cult and step back into the life teaching of the Christ, of Jesus. And why have those people been forgotten? Why have those teachers been relegated to history? Well, it's because they were a threat. They were a threat to the political power, to spiritual stifling of the masses. And so they retreated to caves and hermitages for their own safety and their own sanity. And only centuries later were they recognized for the wisdom they had. And the important thing to know, though, why I bring this up, is because the idea of a universe-spanning Christ has always been right in front of us for those who have eyes to see. You can find pieces of it in the Gospel of John, in Colossians, in Ephesians, in Hebrews, in 1 John, and in so many other writings of so many other authors. The early Eastern mystics wrote about it. Even the Western mystics wrote about it. And what we may not have noticed is that these people had something in common. Something in common with Jesus, something in common with every great teacher that has ever walked the earth, every great explorer. And that piece that they had in common was that people who do this process reality differently than we do. They look at things differently. They have a wider lens of the cosmic Christ. You know, we've been looking at the teachings of Jesus and others through the lens of a microscope instead of a telescope. And we've lost that depth. So what we are called to do is to broaden our view, to comprehend a cosmic notion of Christ and a non-tribal notion of Jesus. And I add here that it was not just ill will that narrowed our vision of Jesus, our vision of his teachings. It was a lack of mindfulness. We don't have that mindfulness often in our Western way of thinking because of our attachment to power, to money, to war, to acquisition, to getting and holding on to. And so we spend a lot of time immersed in that. And because of that, we've spent a lot of time and energy these last 1,600 years trying to process a Jesus as a personal incarnation of God, a God that an empire could make use of. And we've lost the ability, we've lost the time and the willingness to universalize the message to all flesh, to quote John, much less to all of creation. And the problem with that is it leaves no room. It leaves no room for outsiders, or sinners they were called, of any sort. From people who thought differently, from looked differently, from believed differently, that loved differently. And all of that is in fact in direct opposition to everything Jesus taught us. However, the good news is that with a contemplative mind, we can begin to return to seeing things in depth. We can see in 3 dimension instead of 2 dimension. You know, two-dimensional viewpoint or two-dimensional thinking, or what we call binary thinking, it prevents us. It prevents us from being able to engage and to really deal with life. It prevents us from being able to deal with love and death and suffering and infinity and God and sexuality or mystery in general. Because in two-dimensional thinking or binary consciousness, we have to choose between good and bad, right and wrong. We only have two choices. There's no room for exploration. There's no room for understanding. There's only two alternatives, and two alternatives is always exclusionary. It always has an attitude of, you are either with me or against me. You being people, the universe, God. God is always with me or against me. Male, female, Republican, Democrat, Christian, pagan, and on and on and on. But with three-dimensional or in-depth contemplative mind, we shift that viewpoint. We shift that understanding. And we see the entirety, the whole. We see the beauty and the diversity. And then we can begin to see the holy. Did you know that the word whole, W-H-O-L, and holy, H-O-L-Y, come from the exact same root? When we can see the whole, we can see the holy. If we cannot see the whole, we can only see the profane. Richard Rohr writes in his book, "It is not our metaphysics or what is real that is changing, but our epistemology, how we think we know what is real." Epistemology is all about understanding the whole, understanding reality. And it's a word that is only just now coming back into use in our Western culture. We can thank the rediscovery of contemplative practice for that, along with insights from people like Thomas Merton, from psychology and therapy and spiritual alternatives and exploration. We are just now seeing with greater clarity, at least those who are brave enough to see. And we are beginning to understand just how off the rails Christianity has gotten. We see the subjugation that has come out of off the rails Christianity, the subjugation of indigenous peoples, of women, of people of different orientations, of the poor, of animals, of life itself, of the earth itself. All of a result of thinking that somehow we are responsible for proving the Christ. That is what two-dimensional, non-contemplative thinking does. It puts us in a place where we have to prove to ourselves that the Christ is something real. And because the way we prove to ourselves is try to make everybody else believe as we believe, we have created a very narrow-minded, an impossible religion for us and for others. But here's the truth. The Christ is unprovable. The Christ mystery cannot be proven and does not need to be proven. For how can we prove creation itself? We can't. Why? Because we're part of it. That would be like saying, I have to prove that I am here in front of you. How do I do that? I am. There's just no way to prove it. And how do I know it's not a dream, an illusion, a movie? How do I do that? I can't. But I can immerse myself in the experience. And that is what Jesus called us to do. Experience the Christ. Not just the Christ that I have, but the Christ that you are, that you have. How do we do it? We do it through contemplation. We do it through meditation. We do it through exploration. And we do it as we shift our so-called religion from what to believe to how to believe. You know, Christianity has been about moving from having faith in Jesus to having the faith of Jesus. Do as I do. There are so many ways of knowing. And I just want to break here real quick and say, you know, I know this first part of the lesson was maybe a little depressing. But I shared it because we have to understand where we have been so that we can step off in a new direction. Richard Rohr wrote this in his book. If we have never suffered deeply or loved deeply, we are unable to understand spiritual things at depth. You know, maybe the last 1600 years have been in preparation for this time of isolating, of having time to go within and contemplating so that we can begin to understand spiritual things at depth, so that we can begin to remodel our spiritual path in a healthy way. A healthy religion is not teaching you about somebody who lived or some people who lived. It is teaching you how to deal with life, how to deal with suffering, how to deal with love, how to deal with death, and how to deal with life. We call that in Unity practical spirituality. We always have. How do we make it practical and useful right here and right now? Well, as we develop spiritually, we use experience. We use experience to develop a non-dual mind, to acquire tools and practices. And these tools and practices we call affirmative prayer, meditation, contemplation. And the important thing, the part we leave out even in Unity, is this, that these practices have to become a more than once a week practice. They must become our daily bread. That's the daily bread that Jesus was talking about. Not some magical loaf of bread that's going to plop down on the ground in front of us. That's Old Testament thinking. That's childish thinking. The daily bread is the tools that we have, that we use every single day. Every spiritual teacher, every mystical path has taught this. It, in fact, was the meaning of the original Jewish Shabbat, the Sabbath. It wasn't supposed to be a day a week where you don't do anything. It was time every day in contemplation. So why do we do that? Why is that so important? Because it is not possible to connect to spirit, to that Christ within, without taking time every day to do so. Without time spent in silent contemplation. Oh, sure, we can have the momentary, wow, God experiences. But to move from dualistic consciousness to universal consciousness, we have to consciously engage it. We have to consciously make time for it every day. To be whole, to be holistic, to be holy, we have to be able to see through the darkness. We have to be able to be in the darkness as well as in the light. And so every day we kindle the flame. Every day we make room for the light, for those times when we are in the dark. As we do this, we'll notice a shift beginning to happen. In the beginning, we may notice, or maybe even not, but it's happening. We are moving from left brain dominance to right brain dominance. Eventually, the more we practice, the more we gain a unified brain balance. Let's look at that for a minute. We know that the left side of our brain deals with science and technology and conquest and winning. It's really where the Western world has been the last 2,000 years. All about that. And I think that probably has been necessary for our development. We have come a long ways with left brain thinking. But what about the right brain? The right brain has been active, more active in some people than others. And the right brain deals with the arts, with mystery, with paradox, and with soul knowledge. All of which have been given a back seat in our Western culture and practice. But I want you to hear that last part that the left brain deals with. Soul knowledge. Now, the right brain deals with soul knowledge too, but they are two different kinds of soul knowledge. There's knowing about the soul, and then there is knowing what the soul knows. The right brain knows about the soul. The right brain studies ways to get into this soul knowledge, but the left brain knows what the soul knows. That's the integration of the two brains into a unified thought, a unified consciousness. What is soul knowing? What does the soul know? Well, if you want to know how people who have that soul knowledge are, look at some of the examples we have in Mary and Joseph in the New Testament, in Moses and Abraham, in the Buddha and Muhammad, and of course in Jesus. There are others: Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King, Gandhi, the Dalai Lama. All of them come from that soul knowingness. That's our new epistemology. What is epistemology? It is a science that asks and seeks the answer of, how do I know what I think I know? How do I know what I think I know? And I would say Christianity needs to go one step further and ask this: how do we know what we think we know for sure? I took that from Richard Rohr. How do we know what we think we know for sure? Well, we do it through accessing soul knowledge, by using these practices, these tools, to create that unified consciousness, to move from dualistic thinking. One of the ways we can do this is something that Richard Rohr includes in this book. I've known about this through Buddhism. It's a Buddhist practice. It's called the tricycle methodology. There's a Buddhist magazine that I think it's still in publication called Tricycle. And you'll find this idea prevalent in every spiritual path, not just Buddhism. It consists of 3 practices, 3 things we can do to develop these skills. The first is experience. The second is sacred writings. The third is tradition. So let's take a look at this tricycle, beginning with experience. Well, our experience has brought us to a point where we know that traditional Western Christianity is no longer working. There's no argument there. Churches are dying of all denominations. And of course, we have the rise of radical evangelicalism, which we know has not been working. We know that in our own experience, Christianity as we have practiced it is no longer really working. And so how do we shift that? Well, we need to cease judging our experience. We shouldn't call it right or wrong, because it's brought us to this point. It has served us well throughout history. And it is time to step into a higher practice of Christianity. And so we have to ask ourselves, how are we reacting in our situations? How do we keep experiencing the same things over and over again? You know, that's the definition of insanity. Well, I would say not necessarily. Yes, experiencing the same thing over and over again and reacting the same way results in insanity. But you know what real insanity in this instance is? Is experiencing the same things over and over again and not looking for the message that is being given to us, not looking for that lesson. When we are having an experience of fear or faith or love or anger or loss, if we have developed the skills of observation and contemplation, we can step outside of the experience and see it, observe it with the eyes of the watcher. We can be in the world, but not of the world. Sound familiar? We're getting into some of the deeper teachings of these expressions that we've grown up with, aren't we? We step out of the experience and we turn and we watch it with no attachment. We don't have any judgment. We don't need to change the experience. We just observe and contemplate the message of the experience. That's not to say that the human part of us won't have feelings about it. But from the point of view of the observer, we can examine those feelings. We can say, oh, me that is having the experience is angry. Me that is having the experience is upset. Me that is having the experience is in the world. But I'm standing here outside of it, not of the world. And I can ask, why am I having this experience? And why is me that is having the experience reacting this way? So the me that is having the experience reacts, acts again as I have always acted before in this experience. But the me that is observing the experience can respond. I can take responsibility and say, oh, that is the lesson of the experience, and I am going to respond in a different way. Thank you. Thank you. Always say thank you. It is not my will, but thy will that is being done. Do you hear that? Do you hear the deeper meaning of that passage? Not my will, but thy will be done. Not my will, the will of the person having the experience, but thy will, the will of the indwelling Christ that knows the truth, that gets the message, that says, oh, let's respond differently. That's the power of experience and of using contemplation to have that experience. So what about sacred writing? You know, that's something we have lost. I was blessed to have a classical education. And I don't see that happening much anymore. We're losing that desire, that interest to engage these sacred writings that are not only in the Bible, but are in so many other works that give us this broader view. But what's interesting to me is that those sacred writings show up everywhere. Everywhere. I promise you, you can hand me the Sunday paper and I can find something sacred, something inspirational, something mystical and metaphysical in it. Spirit is always, always giving us messages. I just went online when I was preparing this yesterday, and it's too hard to ship back and forth between screens, so I'll just explain it to you. I said, okay, I'm going to pull up the first comic I can with Google and see if there's a metaphysical lesson here. And so what came up was two stick figures looking at a computer screen. And one stick figure is saying to the other, you know this metal rectangle full of little lights? The other one says, yes. The first one says, I spend most of it's a computer screen. I spend most of my life pressing buttons to make the pattern of lights change however I want. And the second one says, oh, that sounds good. And then the first one says, but today, the pattern of lights is all messed up. It's not cooperating. Oh God, try pressing more buttons, the second figure says. It's not working. It's not helping. I could do a whole metaphysical Sunday lesson on that. How many times does life give us a pattern of experience and we try to push the same buttons and do the same things we have always done, and it's not working? And we feel out of control. Great metaphysical lesson there in a comic. Spirit is communicating to us all of the time. We have to simply stop and look and listen. Give me any writing, and I can find a sacred lesson there. Maybe some Sunday when we're back together, we'll just pull something out of the newspaper or something and do a lesson on it. But the point of this is that we need to stop reading things literally. We need to stop taking things literally. You know, that's been the great malpractice of Christianity. We have a sacred book. We say it's sacred, and I don't think it's any more or less sacred than so many others or than any other. But we've taken this sacred book And we say, you can only interpret it one way, and if you do it any other way, you will be put to death. Or, you'll be a blasphemer or something. It wasn't written to be taken literally. It wasn't. This is an Eastern manuscript, this thing we call the Bible. And Eastern manuscripts are always written as allegory, as metaphor. And so we need to stop that nonsense and take a new look at these sacred writings. What did we do, though? Well, there were people who tried that through the ages. And so what happened is we appointed professionals that would tell us what these sacred writings meant. And you could not disagree with those professionals. We call them ministers. Me. But even I can't do that. And I will never tell you that what I am saying is the only interpretation. Because it's going to be different for everybody. I can give you ideas that are helpful in pointing the way to understanding these writings, but you have to do it for yourself. You have to have your own interpretation, and to do that, you also have to read them. Just a little hint there. So that is sacred writings. What about tradition? What about tradition? Tradition's important. We all have our traditions. But tradition doesn't have to mean that we are narrow-minded. Yeah, I looked up the etymology of the word tradition and discovered several things. One, the original meaning meant to hand over. To hand over. And that can be of great use, or it can also be a negative meaning. The root word of tradition, the original word, is also the word that the word treason came from. Our traditions can be treasonous to us. Why? Well, when they become constricting. When our tradition says, well, I can't look at any other tradition. I can't accept any other ideas. I only can accept this one that my grandfather and my great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather had. Women tend to be a little more broad-minded. Maybe us men need to do that too. Maybe we need to create a new tradition. A tradition of being open to other traditions. I like this passage by T.S. Eliot, this little paragraph. Tradition is not solely or even primarily the maintenance of certain dogmatic beliefs. These beliefs have come to take their living form in the course of the formation of a tradition. What I mean by tradition are all of those habitual actions, habits, and customs, from the most significant religious rite to our conventional ways of greeting a stranger, which represent the blood kinship of the same people living in the same place. We become conscious of these items, or conscious of their importance, usually only after... I lost my place. Only after... Well, excuse me. We become conscious of these only after they begin to fall into desuetude. As we are aware of the leaves of a tree when the autumn wind begins to blow them off, when they have separately ceased to be vital. Energy may be wasted at that point in a frantic endeavor to collect the leaves as they fall and glue them back onto the branches. But the sound tree will put forth new leaves, and the dry tree should be put to the axe. Maybe it's time to let go of some of our traditions. If you tune in to our nightly inspiration at 8 o'clock, you may notice that I don't quote just from the Bible. In fact, I hardly ever quote from the Bible, to tell you the truth. I quote from many, many sources. Of course, I quote from Jesus. I quote from the Buddha, the Dalai Lama, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, Eric Butterworth, T.S. Eliot, the Upanishads, Walt Whitman, Charles Dickens. Why? Because there is sacred truth everywhere we look. And the gift of having and using so many different sources is because it expands our mind. It gets us out of right brain thinking, moves us into left brain, which enables us to develop that unified mind. You know, we have our traditional ways of thinking in culture. Our traditional way in the West has been about getting and keeping. It's about authoritarianism, government, structure, top down. It's about, in our religions, it's about Jesus being the only way to God. Oh my God, I drive around this part of the country and everywhere I see billboards. Jesus is the only way to God. All right, I'm a minister. And I'm going to say meal fritters. And you can't throw anything at me because I'm virtual. Meal fritters. The Christ is the way to God. It's the way we all get to God. It's our connection to God. Jesus was a man in history who showed us the Christ within us. Get that. Jesus is not the way to God. The Christ is the way to God. I'm being radical and rebellious. And it's fun. The Christ is our oneness with God. Jesus was a teacher who showed us that oneness. There were others as well. So, following the example of Jesus is a way to God. Doing as Jesus did is a way to God. The Christ is the way to God. So in closing, we're on that journey. We're on that journey back to God. We've never been separate except in our consciousness. So we are on a journey back into our knowing, our oneness with God. And that journey is the journey that all of creation is on. From the quarks and the phasons and the subatomic particles all the way up to entire galaxies and the universe itself. And for every one of us humans, for every bit of creation, the journey is the same, but it has different routes, different paths, different adventures. It's not a journey that started 2,000 years ago, or started 200,000 years ago with the rise of Homo sapiens, or 2 billion or 5 billion years ago. It is a journey that has always been and always will be. Because the further we go, the higher the destination becomes. We are all travelers. We always have been, each in our own way. We've been learning to let go of something smaller so that we can become something bigger. Over and over again, each time we have let go, we have come to a higher realization, closer and closer to fulfillment of that Christ within. It's not religion. It's a highly visible spiritual truth. It is the way reality works. It is the purpose of creation itself. It is the way all things work, and the Christ is in all things. It's not a religion to be argued for or against, to be fought over or embraced, to be fervently accepted or angrily rejected. As Richard Rohr says, it is a train ride already in motion, and the tracks are visible everywhere. You can be a willing and happy traveler, or not. It's your choice. Happy journeys. Namaste.
Thank you. As usual, my mind is blown. I've got so many pages of notes here, but the bottom line, the call to look through a wider lens, to broaden our view. Thank you, Gordon. Your words really will help us do that as we contemplate this lesson throughout the week.
You're welcome.
Powerful stuff. Now, though, we want to welcome any visitors that have stopped by on Facebook. We are glad to see you, to have you with us. We invite you to join us each Sunday at 11 o'clock Central Time. And come on aboard. And because it is Potluck Sunday, if you were with us physically, you would get to go first through the line. And some of you popped into the chat what you would be bringing. Gordon, check this out. We're going to be so well fed. These are just the Facebook friends that I have and then our Zoom people. Your daughter, Lydia, said she would bring homemade cookies from John.
Oh, I love their homemade cookies. Hi, Pumpkin.
Yep. And speaking of cookies, Michael Woodruff's wife, as you were speaking, was making peanut butter cookies with Reese's Pieces in them. Sarah's got some popcorn popping. She'd be willing to bring. Neely's talking strawberry pie. Oh my gosh, yum. And those are, sweets. That's okay, but we're going to balance things out. I'm going to do veggie lasagna. Jerry Ellen, I was laughing. Gordon, you were talking about what our daily bread is. I was cracking up because Jerry Ellen's going to bring homemade bread.
Yum.
That'd be great. Novella's got Mexican deviled eggs on the way. Candy's got us covered with roasted sweet potatoes, asparagus, and Brussels sprouts. And we're going to feast. And so as you have your own lunch today, just kind of imagine that feast happening in our fellowship hall. And we will affirm that that is coming soon, right? Yeah. We are well fed, both spiritually and physically, at Unity of Joplin. And now let's bless the kids that join us each Sunday, the kid within, with our children's blessing. And there's Sam. Sam, you're our representative today, okay? Okay.
I think John's there. Oh.
You are a beloved. Am I doing that right?
Can you not see the slides?
No.
Oh, for crying out loud. Hang on, guys. I don't know why it's not sharing. How about now?
Yes.
All right. And by the way, I think John is with us too, my grandson. So we have a couple kids.
Hi, John. Children, you are a perfect child of God, and God and I love you just the way you are. So true. So true. And yep, it's birthday Sunday, the merry month of May. I happen to know there are a couple people here that are having birthdays this month. The rest of you can raise your hands, but our very own Gordon is having a birthday May 9th. And then I follow 20 days later at the end of the month on May 29th. Anybody else? I'm looking for hands on Zoom. I can't see Facebook. But we just know you can be experiencing a birthday anytime. So join us as we sing our birthday song.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Unitic. Happy birthday to you. God is blessing you now. God is blessing you now. God is blessing you. You are wonderful. God is blessing you now.
It just wouldn't be the birthday song without that ending.
Yes. That's right.
I love it. Thank you, and happy birthday to everybody.
You too, Ann.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Speaking of singing, how about our peace song and then our prayer for protection as we close out today's service?
And then remember, we will keep the Zoom room open. And, of course, Facebook will keep... Facebook, I think I'm running out of time. So, but the Zoom room will be open.
Right. We would love to hear any prayer requests you have for this month. Feel free to drop those in the chat as well. We'll join you in prayer.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
And now let's do our prayer for protection. The light of God, the light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. And all is well. Amen.